The statements, I like Thing X, whatever that thing is, and Thing X should probably improve this and not go this direction because it's not really good for anyone. Those two statements don't have to be mutually exclusive, and I am sort of taken aback by all the tribalism and, I guess, anger, believing that those things can't be in the same thought. You know, the idea that I can't think that Sony PlayStation is an awesome platform that I really enjoy playing games on and enjoy their exclusives, but think that them shutting down the PS3/Vita store and basically making it so that you eventually can't play your games through the CMOS battery conundrum, that I can't think those are bad things and still like parts of PlayStation. It's really weird to me, but at least today we have good news for those of you who are smart enough to care, because I think a lot of people believe gaming is this disposable hobby. Old games don't matter, they're bad. I mean, we've even seen those comments from the current CEO of PlayStation, Jim Ryan, who's basically said, when we've dabbled with backwards compatibility, I can say it is one of those features that is much requested but not actually used much. That, and I was at a Gran Turismo event recently where they had PS1, PS2, PS3, and PS4 games, and the PS1 and PS2 games, they looked ancient. Like, why would anybody play this? When we have comments like that coming from the CEO, it's no wonder that sort of an attitude has been stoked in a lot of consumers that things can just be thrown away and forgotten. When they're old, they don't matter. The problem with that is that means the games you're playing right now are going to be absolute horse crap in 5 or 10 years, because that's what they're saying, These games that are old, a decade, 2 decades old, they're garbage. So in the future, the games you're playing then, by that logic, will be trash. You should never go back to them. So why waste your time on them now? Why not just wait for later games, right? That's the issue with this logic, and it also throws away a lot of good history and games. We don't see this with movies. We don't see people say, old movies are just absolute horse crap. People go back to 1970 movies all the time. People are watching Star Wars, Episode 4, 5, and 6, into the 80s. People are watching the Matrix movies from the 90s. People are watching all kinds of classics. Citizen Kane, considered one of the best movies of all time. Nobody's sitting there arguing with their head up their ass that it's bad just because it's old. Certain technical elements can age poorly, but that doesn't make the overall product bad. The reason that I even say this is just because of the amount of stupidity I've seen in some of the comment sections about this stuff, both in my own videos and in other people's videos, like Some Ordinary Gamers, just everybody. This whole issue was originally pointed out to me by a friend of mine, and then it sort of came up on YouTube as something that was suggested to me in terms of what is happening with the PS3, PS4, and PS5. And the biggest source I have had for this was Hikikomori Media, which I always say his name wrong. I'm very sorry. He actually was kind enough to comment on one of my most recent videos. And also Does It Play on Twitter. They're both great with this stuff. And we're finally at the point of the day, which is that Sony has reversed its decision to take down the PS3 and PS Vita stores for now. The PS3 and the PS Vita stores. PSP will still retire on July 2nd, 2021. Again, this is just me. I've never been a PSP gamer. It's a solid system. To me, the store closing, though, was never the biggest issue out of all of this, right? So even if the PS3 and PS Vita stores still closed, to me, that sucks, because if you want to get some of these games legitimately without piracy, without emulation, you want to give someone money to get a product, this was one of the ways to still do that. Persona 2, again, $350 to $500 in box in North America. On here, it's like $10, So in terms of preserving games for legitimate consumption, not just having to go through ROMs and emulation, which I personally don't have a problem with, this was a good thing for preserving games, letting people have access to it, and still throwing a couple bucks to the people who made them. Jim Ryan, however, as the CEO, has sort of been a bit averse to these ideas of playing old games, like I pointed out earlier. But he did release a statement on PlayStation blog today saying, recently, we notified players that the PlayStation Store for PS3 and PS Vita devices was planned to end this summer. Upon further reflection, which in my opinion means since everybody threw a bunch of money at these games and got really angry, however, It's clear that we made the wrong decision here, no shit. So today, I'm happy to say that we will be keeping the PlayStation Store operational for PS3 and PS Vita devices. PSP Commerce functionality will still retire on July 2nd, 2021, as planned. When we initially came to the decision to end purchasing support for PS3 and PS Vita, it was born out of a number of factors, including commerce support challenges for older devices, and the ability for us to focus more of our resources on newer devices, blah, 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 blah. Basically, it's the idea of, like, even though we're a billion-dollar company, we can't afford to keep these old, slow-ass servers up. It's really interesting to me, especially because the PlayStation 4 and 5 stores are absolutely pathetic compared to the PS3 store, if you want to play a lot of these older games. And there has been a lot of mixed messaging from PlayStation that I don't understand in terms of backwards compatibility, playing old games, all this stuff. Like Jim Ryan saying that the PS4 backwards compatibility was not that big of a deal, but then Sony going on to push a bunch of PlayStation 2 classics on the PS4 with just some upgraded, visuals and trophy support, essentially running an emulator on the PS4, which you could do for free from your computer if you so chose to do. It was very interesting to me because there was this message at the same time of old games are bad, why do you bother, and let's sell you old games. And when they saw people sort of come together to buy a bunch of these old games and get mad about the PS3 and Vita store closing, not really because it's the PS3 and PS Vita, but because it's the only way to affordably get some of these classic games. Herc's Adventure, Persona 2, I believe Gradius 5 is a game like that too, very expensive. Even some of the Fatal Frame games, are more expensive than they should be, although they are very cheap compared to some others, like some of the Shin Megami Tensei titles on here. When they made this decision and they saw people sort of come together to buy all these games and get upset about this, I don't think they really realized how much some of us cared. I still think it's sad how little others cared. It's not about emulation being bad. I don't really know where that came from. This somehow, maybe that's my fault. Like, I'll totally own that. Somewhere along the way, I must have said something that came off as, like, I think emulation's bad. I don't know where I said that, but I must have. Really, though, a lot of people, myself included, just prefer to buy the games. It's easier. I, for one, have gotten, like back in the day, let's say hypothetically, little J maybe did some torrenting, and got in some trouble. Maybe I got a little bit of the internet letter saying knock it off, and maybe, the ISP was a little pissy with me and threatened to report it, stuff like that. There was an era where I grew up with the internet. I am now 26, where in a lot of states, especially mine, they pretty closely monitored some of that stuff. Now with VPNs and all this other stuff, you don't really have to worry that much. If you're deciding to torrent or you're deciding to emulate and not dump your backups, but just go online and take games, you maybe don't have to worry as much about the consequences of that. And I get that. If you are comfortable doing that, and that's what you want to do, more power to you. I'm not going to encourage you to do it. I'm not going to tell you to stop. It's your life, Just like if you want to run a red light, just like if you want to go 10 miles over the speed limit and you're not too concerned about the police, if you're not hurting anybody, I get it, I don't think emulation is bad. In fact, most of these games run based off of essentially emulation already. The PS4 being able to play PS2 classic games with their trophy support and stuff, it's essentially just running a up-resed PS2 emulation device through your PS4. This is how they do backwards compatibility already. The only difference is you're putting it on your PC. It's not illegal for me to set up PCSX2 and put my Silent Hill 2 disc in and either rip the game or run it straight off the disc through PCSX2 on my PC. That's not illegal. I don't think there's a problem with that. But I do think that the answer shouldn't have to be emulation, I'm not saying it isn't. I'm saying that the company shouldn't back us as consumers into a spot where it has to be that. That was always my issue with shutting down these stores, with limiting the accessibility to these games. If the PS3 store as a whole was on the PS4, fine. It's had its run, shut it down. I don't care that much. But limiting access to these games to basically just rich people, people who can afford to drop $500 on Persona 2, I don't really think that that's the solution either. Gaming has always been a niche hobby in some ways, but It's been affordable in different tiers to different people, and I don't think making it less affordable to people who enjoy old games was ever a good idea. I don't think it ever looked good for Sony, and I still think that they have yet to address the real problem, which is the CMOS battery conundrum. That is the whole thing that I've been talking about for so many videos that I don't want to ramble on about, where essentially, if you don't know this, the TLDR is your PlayStation has a little battery. It's essentially on the motherboard of your PS3, PS4, and PS5, that if that battery is dead and the system cannot connect in some way to PSN, you are locked out of access to some of your games. Usually it's digital. On PS4, it's basically digital and physical, since your PS4 discs often work more like a key. And then, on PS5, it's a mixed bag. The thing is, there were ways around that. You can jailbreak your console. Up to you if you want to. Again, you certainly can do that. And that is sadly the solution to fixing this problem right now, is to just go ahead and jailbreak your PlayStation consoles, if this ever happened. Where you could set up custom firmware. You shouldn't have to, though. That's what this was always about, was not, hey, old games are better than new games. It was not, hey, if you don't have a PS3, you're a moron. But it is crazy to me how stupid and tone deaf some of the responses from consumers have been. It has to be said that you can criticize a company and what they're doing and still like their product or still like them as a whole. Capcom is this way for me. Capcom screwed up for years. Just dropping the ball on Mega Man, dropping the ball on Monster Hunter, dropping the ball on pretty much everything. Creating a atmosphere where Mighty Number 9 could come out, and even though it was bad, it wouldn't have happened if, Capcom hadn't become so awful for quite a while. I still love a lot of games from Capcom, and I think they've been doing great work in recent years. Xbox, I was one of the first people, and this was before my channel was big at all. I don't even think I made a video about it, but among my friends, to be like, yeah, the Xbox One looks like garbage. I hate that they're basically making it a DRM machine. I hate that they're basically making it so you need the Kinect. I hate that they're basically making it so it's always online. All this stuff that they eventually backtracked on when they sort of gave the boot to Don Matrick and pulled in Phil Spencer. I thought that stuff was stupid, coming off of thousands of dollars I spent on Xbox 360 products. Thought that was dumb. Love the platform. I think they're doing better now. You guys have to understand, like those of you who are so angry about someone calling out dumb decision with a company, it's okay. It's okay to say you don't like something. Being tribal is worse for gaming. It's worse for everything. Being tribal is accepting everything that's shoved down your throat, whether it's good or bad. That will lead to you getting bad products. I guarantee it. Because at the end of the day, these companies are companies. They're money. That's what they care about. And they care about the consumer's opinion if it's profitable, if it's going to affect their sales, and if it's going to damage or improve their brand and how it looks. That's what was going on with this. I still think we need to hear back about CMOS. I know it was an aside, but I'm extremely disappointed to just see how tribal people are still about the stupid console wars. Like, if you're one of those people going around like, Xbox is better, PC is better, PS4 is better, take it from someone who owns all three and has a good time on all of them, you're an idiot. Just have a fun time. You don't need to look for a circle jerk on your own hobby. No one else gives a shit what you think about it, outside of, are you having fun? Hey, well, do you like this new game? People want positive interactions with you. They don't care about your circle jerk. They just don't. At the end of the day, all these platforms have their problems, and it's disappointing, and they should always be called out because that's the only way they change. And people who say they never change, here you go. Jim Ryan straight up said that they backtracked on this because of people saying things, about it, and people having consumer outcry and all this stuff. There's a reason why they went back on this. It's because people said something. So you can take your nihilistic opinion on never, it never mattering and do whatever you want with it. But this is proof that it sometimes does. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I will update this situation if there's more stuff on the CMOS battery. I do still intend to do lists in the future about the 5, rare games that I'd recommend you get from the PS3 store for PS1, PS2, and PS3 if you're interested, because this store eventually will shut down at some point. It's 2021. It's been up for like a decade. It's not going to stay up forever. These things all have a shelf life, as sad as that is. I'll see you in the next one. Have a fantastic day, And as always, everybody, stay away.